If I've said it once, I have said it 1,000 times, folks. Winter testing in MotoGP doesn't mean anything. Welcome, y'all, to the Monday Morning MotoGP Podcast. We're doing a little sneak peek for those fans who are over on TikTok, but this is going to be airing, if you're watching it now, on Monday morning on YouTube. So go like, follow, share, mash all the buttons there as well. We've got a lot to talk about in the world of MotoGP, being that it was week one of the 2025 season this past weekend in Thailand. Get excited, all right? It's happening. We are back in MotoGP. Big changes, new riders on new teams. We got an outstanding rookie. We're going to talk about winter testing. We're going to talk about the Marquez brothers. We're going to talk about Pecco. We're going to talk about it all right here on the Monday Morning MotoGP Podcast. But first, I'd like to mention a couple of friends of the show. First of all, the folks over at bisontrack.com. If you're looking for gloves, if you're looking for leather suits, boots, apparel, everything motorcycle, go ahead and check out bisontrack.com for all of your moto needs. I am a brand ambassador. And if you stick around to the end of the podcast, I'm going to tell you how to save 10% on your next order from bisontrack.com. And then I'd like to do a special shout out to my friends over at Active Dim Sunglasses. They make these really boss sunglasses that have photochromic lenses that kind of adjust to the lighting conditions. They're great for golf. They're great for motorcycling, hiking outdoors. Fantastic product. Go check them out at activedim.com. But let's get into it. As I said in the opening, a lot of you made a big deal about winter testing. I mean, look at the progress. Honda and Yamaha and Aprilia. I mean, Marco Bezzecchi was the fastest rider at the Thai test in Buriram. I mean, he's going to win the race, right? The Ducatis are finally going to give up their grasp on MotoGP. It's just winter testing. And when I say winter testing doesn't mean jack, it's not that it doesn't mean anything to everyone. It just means nothing to us as the viewer. Because there's nothing we can really figure out from watching winter testing. It's not for us. It's for the teams. The teams are figuring out a lot of things in winter testing, and they're not really telling us what they're running through. We don't know how hard the riders are pushing. We don't know if they're trying stuff they're going to continue to try during the season, or if they're trying one-off parts and realizing they don't work and just throwing them in the garbage. They are making a lot of decisions behind the scenes, so the times on the track don't really reflect what we're going to see in the regular season. And that's why you hear the riders say testing is testing, racing is racing. And again, this first week it kind of proved it. I mean, going through testing, everyone's just going nuts over, Yamaha's back. Aprilia and KTM have closed down the gap to Ducati. Honda, look at Honda, was in the top 10. They had some really fast bikes, everyone going well on the bike. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been improvements. I mean, you can look at the week one results in Thailand and you can see some of the manufacturers improving. But what matters at the end of the day is race finishing, is scoring points. And as much as you all don't want to really say it, main Grand Prix on Sunday, 4 Ducatis in the top 4. Kind of business as usual. And Bez was not competing for the win in Thailand. Everyone was ready to crown Marco Bezzecchi the king of Aprilia. I get it, Jorge Martin is not there. He's out with an injury, so we're holding on to Bez as our hope with Aprilia, hoping he can take it to the front and fight with the Ducatis. And yeah, what did he finish? 6th in the race on Sunday? Wasn't really around in the sprint very much. So yeah, improvement? Sure. Competing with the Ducatis, competing at the front? Not yet. Not at that track. Not in Thailand. So I think next time we look at testing schedules, I think everyone needs to just relax. There's not really all that much you can tell. I'm a MotoGP fanatic, and I don't watch the winter testing. I look at the headlines, I look at the times. I don't watch them pull laps because there's just not that much you can learn. We don't know what the guys in the garage are thinking or doing. We don't know how much Ducati was holding back in the test. From what it looks like in Thailand, they were holding back quite a bit because they won these Grand Prix with ease. Take Marc Marquez out of it. Take the generational talent out of it. You have Alex Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia, and on Sunday, Franco Morbidelli blowing the rest of the field away. Now, this is a quote I saw a couple years ago, and I believe it was 2020, 2021 maybe, and it was when Pol Espargaro was riding with Honda, and the headline after winter testing was, Pol Espargaro HRC P1 in testing. That was the headline. Pol Espargaro was the fastest rider in testing. And Honda, Why did they have any reason to believe they wouldn't be at the front? They were coming off of Marc Marquez dominating 2019. He was injured in 2020. That's a wash. They get into 2021, 2022. We're back. They were not back. They are still not back. As much as winter testing, you'd love to see it. I want to see it. I want to see everyone catch up to Ducati. I don't want to see a whole season where Marc just runs away with it. 2019 wasn't that fun to watch because Marc just kind of inevitably won the championship. I don't think there was a question all season long. Hopefully, more riders can bring it to him this season than they did back then. So, lower the temperature when it comes to talking about winter testing. It's not for us. It's not for you. It's for the team. Now, what is for you was the racing on Saturday and Sunday. Practice sessions, we got to see a lot of different people topping the timesheets in different sessions. We saw Honda and Yamaha kind of showing signs of life, especially in practice, getting through to Q2. We had, I think, all 5 manufacturers in Q2 for the first time in what seems like forever. But the person I want to focus on is the young rookie wonder boy, Ayagura. Now, I called Pedro Acosta the rookie wonder boy last year, but he has moved on. He is now a second-year sophomore, and the wonder boy baton has been passed to Ayagura, who did not disappoint at any point during the weekend. He is on a satellite team, American Trackhouse Racing Aprilia. No one is expecting this guy to get straight through to Q2. No one is expecting this guy to be the top Aprilia. No one is expecting this guy to fight with Pecco Bagnaia in the first sprint of the year. He did all those things this weekend. And I'm going to tell you why, if you were surprised, you haven't been paying attention to Ayagura and who he is. Coming from Moto3, I wouldn't say dominant in Moto3, very competitive in Moto3, he goes to Moto2. Here's a little fun fact. Other than the first race in Moto2, his rookie season, which he finished 17th, kind of not dissimilar from David Alonso, who dominated Moto3, goes to Moto2, gets a little humbled this weekend. He has to learn the ropes. But in Ayagura's rookie season in Moto2, other than that first race, he never finished outside of the top 10 if he didn't retire the bike. Every single race he finished was in the top 10. 2022, he fights for the title all the way down to the wire. Made some young rider mistakes, but he was there in 2022. He could have won the title then. We could have seen this guy looking at a MotoGP spot at the end of the 2022 season. 2023, he gets injured. He rides the entire season injured. Doesn't really have the chance to compete for the title. And then, of course, last year, comes back. New manufacturer, goes from Kalex, goes from his home at Honda, who he'd never been apart from his entire racing career, goes over to Boscoscuro, and just makes that transition look easy. And we saw the new Pirelli tires coming to Moto2 throw a lot of riders for a loop. We saw Fermin Aldeguer struggle, Alonso Lopez struggle. Ayagura never looked like he struggled on that bike during a race. Did he qualify great? Not really. But on race day, on Sunday, it was a completely different ballgame for this kid, and he was amazing all last season, making that transition. This guy's been fast on everything he's ever ridden, which is the sign that he's going to be able to transition to MotoGP, because it's all about adjustment, right? You can be fast in Moto3 and not be fast in Moto2. You can be fast on one chassis and not the other. If you're a rider like I, who has literally, go look at the statistics, he's been fast on every single bike he's been handed, whether it's the new tires, new chassis, new team, nothing has fazed this kid. So going to MotoGP, making that move up, again, he was ready 2 years ago. Now he's fully ready. Now, did I expect him to go straight through to Q2? No, that was a surprise. I was expecting him to maybe fight his way out of Q1. I think he's very fast. Again, he's never had that one-lap Wonder Boy speed that we kind of saw from Fabio Quartararo in his rookie year. So I wasn't really expecting Ayagura to be at the top of the timesheets, especially on Aprilia. I'm still not sold that the Aprilia is the great bike that everyone kind of says it is. Oh, yeah, just Jorge Martin now that he's on Aprilia. Oh, they're championship worthy. I don't think so. They're close. They're not there yet. But the fact that I was the fastest Aprilia all weekend long was the most impressive. 4th in the sprint, 5th in the main race, going toe-to-toe with Pecco Bagnaia, learning a ton in his first week in very, very hot, slippery, tough, really hard conditions. You have to take your hat off to this guy. And again, if you're surprised, I don't think you've really been paying attention to who he is, what his career is. This guy is even-keeled. He takes every step, one step at a time. He's very methodical, and he is a beast when he puts on that helmet. And I expect to see him near the front all season long. If it's a track that Aprilia can be competitive at, like next week at Argentina, or the next race, 2 weeks from now, in Argentina, we've seen the Aprilia be fast here. We know Bez is going to be fast here. He's been fast here on other bikes. But I do think that we can see Aprilia continue to be fast. Now, can they compete every single week? I don't expect them to see him there every week. But at tracks where Aprilia should be a little faster, I expect him to be near the top. Maybe get on a podium in his rookie season. Hats off to the guy. Even though I'm wearing Tantra's hat, no hard feelings. It was, the Thai man's legendary first Grand Prix, the first Thai rider to be in MotoGP in his home race. Had to rep him. Sorry, but hats off to you. Huge, huge weekend. But let's go to the title contenders. Let's talk about title contenders, and let's talk about Alex Marquez. Is Alex Marquez, for the first time in MotoGP, a legit title contender? I think there are some Alex fanboys out there who'd say, oh no, he's been a title contender before, he's very talented. Okay, I get it. But I don't think we've ever looked at Alex and said, you can compete for a title. Is he a title contender this season? Sure. As in, top 3 of the points after the first weekend. He's on a very good bike. He's going to be competitive all season long. And it's motorcycle racing. You never know what's going to happen from one weekend to the next. Is he a title contender? Absolutely. A favorite? No, I think he still slots in, somewhere behind Marc and Pecco, somewhere with the Giannantonio and Morbidelli and the other Ducatis. Maybe Bezzecchi and Martin can kind of figure into that as well. But Alex is going to be there, and I think he's going to be there all season long. I said in a post this last week on TikTok, I expect Alex Marquez to be that good second rider on your MotoGP fantasy team all season long. Top rider? Not so sure. Secondary rider? Absolutely. But if Alex wants to be a contender this season, he has to perform early on in the season when this 2024 bike he's riding is as close as it can be to the 2025 bike that his brother and Pecco are riding. Now, very famously, we all know, if you've been paying attention, maybe you haven't been, but the 2025 Ducati is running the 2024 spec engine. They didn't want to gamble and lock themselves into an engine for 2025 and 2026, because there's a 2-year freeze. They didn't want to lock themselves into that engine if they weren't really sure of it, so they went back to the tried and true package of the 2024 machine, which means the bikes that Marc and Pecco are riding are very eerily similar to the bikes the rest of the Ducati riders are currently on. That is not going to stay the same. That is not going to be the status quo of the season. The factory boys will get upgrades. They will get new parts. They will get aero improvements. They will get chassis improvements the other guys aren't going to get. So, Fabio Di Giannantonio, Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia, those 3 guys are guaranteed the latest spec bike. And the guys at the factory team, the big red team, the Red Bullets, they're going to get those upgrades the fastest, the quickest. And the other guys are going to have to manage with just the package they have under them right now, fine-tuning that. Which means the beginning of the season is Alex Marquez's chance, and all the other guys on the 2024 machine, it's their chance to reel in some points before we see that difference come to fruition. Now, if you remember a couple years ago, in 2023, it was that Ducati that most of the riders had a really hard time adjusting to. Pecco was kind of the only guy who figured it out very, very quickly, gained a bunch of points, and by the time Jorge Martin kind of figured out that package and anyone else, it was kind of too late to compete for the title. And we saw the riders last year that had that 2023 bike during the 2024 season, like Alex Marquez, like Fabio Di Giannantonio, they struggled to adapt to that specific machine. The 2024 was just so much better. Well, now they're on that better package, and the difference between these two machines, 2025 and 2024, ain't much. So we're going to see close racing like we did this weekend between Alex Marquez and the factory boys, between Fabio Di Giannantonio and the factory boys once he's healthy and that collarbone's all healed up. Same thing with Franco Morbidelli, and even Fermin Aldeguer, we could see him improve a lot over the course of the season, but will it be enough to improve past the gap that the 2025 guys are going to be moving with their machinery? So if Alex really wants to be a legit contender, these first 5-6 rounds are where he really needs to get those points and make them count, because I don't think he's going to be there all season long in quite the same way. I think we're going to start seeing a difference, and hopefully also we'll start seeing some of these other manufacturers close the ground even more as their manufacturers start giving them new parts, new upgrades, as they get to know their machine a little better. Hopefully their times can get closer to the factory boys, and we can see tighter racing at the top all over the place. So hopefully Alex Marquez, if you're listening, get those points now. Great start in Thailand with 2 second places right behind his brother, but he has to keep it going in the next 5 weeks, or he really doesn't have a shot. It's going to be down to Pecco and Marc, and that's about it. So let's talk about Pecco and Marc, the last kind of talking point here on this MotoGP Monday Morning Podcast. Marc was strong in Thailand. No question about it. I did not pick him for my fantasy team. Marc hadn't won an opening debut race of a season since 2014, and now part of that was due to injury. Part of that was due to the fact that the season used to start off in Qatar, which is not his strongest track. And so starting off here was much more favorable to Marc. I thought maybe we'd see an early mistake from Marc Marquez, and when he slowed down, it was at lap 7 on Sunday, and looked like he had a little bit of trouble. I was like, whoa, did I call this bang on the money? Not quite. He still wins the race, was dominant, never looked like it was out of hand for Marc Marquez all weekend long. So could we be seeing 2019 all over again? If you remember back to 2019, he was absolutely dominant on the Honda. I think he had a DNF in Austin, and other than that, finished first or second in every single race. Now, the problem with 2019 was that it was kind of, other than like rookie Fabio Quartararo turning in awesome qualifying laps and pole positions out of nowhere. I mean, I didn't know who this guy was. He shows up with the Petronas Yamaha and just like lays it down. But on race Sunday, no one could really touch Marc. It was someone different every week. Davi would fight with him. Alex Rins would fight with him. Someone else would, maybe steal a race win here or there, but no one rider could compete with him week after week. So if Pecco hopes to win the title this year, he's going to need a lot to follow his way. And here's the formula, Pecco, for you to stay in this fight all season long. Step 1, you have to be close every single week. Pecco, you cannot make mistakes like last year. You can't have DNFs like last year. We can't be scoring 0 points. You have to be at the front every single week. If Marc is going to be first or second in every single race, you need to be on the podium in basically every single race. Now, when Marc is weak and there are tracks that you absolutely should win, Pecco, you have to win those races. You have to win the races you're supposed to win. That's step 2 of this title. He has to win at Mugello. He has to win at Misano. He has to win at Qatar, a track that Marc might be a little weaker at. So 1, he has to be close every week. On the weeks that are bad, bad needs to be like 4th, 3rd, 2nd. Bad week for Pecco cannot be 8th. This title will be over before we get to the flyaway races. And Pecco has to win the races he's supposed to win. And then he has to push Marc into a mistake. We have to see Pecco Bagnaia push Marc Marquez out of his comfort zone, whether that is during qualifying, whether that is following Marc during those qualifying sessions, during those practice sessions to get into Q2. Pecco needs to rattle Marc and force him into a mistake. Marc Marquez will make mistakes. We've seen it even in his most dominant season. We've seen DNFs. We've seen him have to save the bike from incredible freaking lean angles. We've seen him push so hard and push himself into mistakes, maybe when he doesn't have to. Even when he's leading for the title and he doesn't have to push, he pushes. He knows one speed, it's full tilt. Marc is going to race really smart, but he can be prone to a mistake if other riders push him, and Pecco has to be there to push him in every single week. So he can't make mistakes himself, but he's got to push Marc Marquez into mistakes. He's got to be consistent every week, and he has to win the races he's supposed to win. Whoa, that should be easy. Now let's go finally to the final talking point of the day, which is the Japanese manufacturers who, again, in winter testing and maybe even in practice in Thailand, showed a little bit of speed, a little bit of pace. We saw Yamahas and Hondas getting straight through to Q2, a little easier than last year. I do think they're making strides. I think this is an opportunity for them this year with the 2024 Ducati not being a step giant leap forward for Ducati. It's kind of, yeah, it's a little better. It's a little the same. Maybe they're not going 8/10 faster than they did last year. They're not going to break a track record everywhere we go this year. It is going to give these Japanese manufacturers a chance to fight with them, but they're still a bit off. I mean, we saw Joan Mir, again, having great practice into Q2, being very fast, but the results were kind of more of the same. DNFs. He's got to stay on the bike. He's got to finish races. He's got to score points. No one wants to see Joan Mir lying on the ground. We don't want to see it. Same thing with Jack Miller. Crashes out of the sprint on Saturday. We don't want to see Jack on the ground. We want to see Jack finishing the top 5 and the top 4, competing, taking points away from Ducati. And Fabio Quartararo, other than that miserable start he got In the weekend, a decent weekend at a track they said, well, we're not going to be that strong here anyway. It's very stop and start, slow corners. They weren't feeling that they had the grip. They had the feeling they had the tire wear down where they were comfortable. So they knew it was going to be a very difficult weekend, and it was. Looked pretty good during the sprint, fended off the KTMs pretty well in the sprint. A horrible start on Sunday and never was able to move forward, finally just scoring 1 point in the main Grand Prix. But let's call it what it is. They still have a long, long way to go. I've said for a little bit now, Yamaha, Honda have to be saying, hey, our target every week is top 10s. Once we can really lock that in and finish in the top 10 every single week, then our target can move to be top 5, top 6. Then our target can kind of shift. Until they are consistently in the top 10, you can't let the media throw your focus and say, oh my gosh, contenders. No, still top 10. That's the goal. Both Honda and Yamaha, get your ass in the top 10 every single week. Don't make it a question. Don't make it a question for guys like me to go, well, they'll be scraping and scratching to get into the top 10 this week. No, they're in the top 10 every single week. Then we can move our eyes up the field a little bit further and have a little bit of hope. Because I think everyone, whether you're a Honda fan, a Yamaha fan, or a Ducati fan, I know we all think MotoGP is better when there are more manufacturers running close together at the front. We want some epic races this year. We don't want to be follow the leader. We don't want to prove the naysayers right. Oh, MotoGP in the Aero era is really boring and there's nothing going on. We want to shut those people up from now and forever. Well, that's about it. Nice, short, sweet. This was Monday Morning MotoGP. Please like, follow, share here on YouTube, and then go over to TikTok, Horsepower Rodeo there as well. Next week, we don't have a race, so we will be doing a special interview version of the Monday Morning MotoGP podcast with a Moto America rider. And yeah, other than that, make sure you're following, staying tuned for I Told You So Tuesday, where I go through my weekend predictions, see how I did, and see how much I get to say to you all, I told you so. As I promised at the beginning of the video, if you go to bisontrack.com and are looking to save 10%, use the coupon code or discount code HP Rodeo 2025. That'll get you 10% off your next order, which is a lot when you're looking at a leather suit or some gloves or something really expensive. I mean, 10% is 10%, y'all. HP Rodeo 2025. That's your discount code. Only if you're a friend of the show. All right, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.